Welcome back to Rise to Liberty podcast. Tonight's special guest is David Fite. However, before we get to our guest, one thing I do want to bring up to everyone is that you can go to risetoliberty.com/red pill if you plan on attending the Red Pill Expo. This is the expo put on by G. Edward Griffin, which has a ton of amazing guests all over the place. Of which I will be having an episode drop tomorrow. It is an interview with Morley Robbins all about the importance of magnesium and copper in our diet and the effects that has on our body. So be on the lookout for that. But to attend the Red Pill Expo, you can go in person. It will be in Tulsa, Oklahoma this year, November 17th, 18th, and 19th, I believe. But you can go to risetoliberty.com/red pill. Use my promo code RISE15 for actually 15% off, not 10% off, 15% off your ticket price, whether it's virtually or in person. So make sure and go check that out. And otherwise, tonight's guest, David Fite. How you doing, David?
I am doing fantastic. Thanks for having me on the show.
Yeah, it's been a minute since we've had you on, so
yeah.
Thought it was overdue. So
yeah. Missed you, buddy.
Yeah, I know. So real quick, just anyone who doesn't know you, who are you?
So I'm David Fite. I am the Vice President of Crafton Business and Financial Services. So my day job is I help small businesses and startups kind of get off the ground with a bunch of the hassles that most people who are good entrepreneurs aren't good at, doing the side hassles that require a business to stay afloat. So that's what I do for most of my day. And I'm also the president of Free Speech Media Corporation, which is a media and podcasting network that has my shows, Fight for Liberty and Fight Club, as well as Ben Weir's Shut the Punk Up. And we are adding another show in about 3 weeks. That's a secret. That's me. I'm a husband, father of 2 boys, and been a libertarian since before I could vote. So,
hell yeah! So make sure and go check out his shows. I'm a big fan. Especially we were talking before the stream of the Fight Club streams that you have been doing, which have kind of been blowing up, which I think is super rad, and I'm super excited to see that. So make sure and go check that out.
Thank you.
So tonight's episode is we're bringing you on to talk about the Chase issue or the Chase situation, the Chase Oliver, I guess, however you want to phrase it. Now I've had Hannah Goodman on of LP Colorado to talk about what was going on in Colorado. We had Angela on, but we actually didn't discuss much of the Chase topic with her, only because I feel like she covered it pretty well on Liberty Dad Pod, which was a fantastic episode. In my opinion, I think it was very insightful to both sides, but we have both been open about the sides that we have chosen in this. But I view this as an important discussion because I can still like you, even though I think you're wrong. And even though you think I'm wrong. And I think that's okay. And I've seen this issue actually tear apart a lot of people, which I think is really unfortunate in the liberty movement, because we don't have a lot of people to be torn apart.
Yeah.
And so do you kind of want to give, like, I guess, the synopsis of like your side and why you have decided to back Chase?
Sure. Well, so first of all, I will say that I was not a Chase voter until convention, right? Like I supported other people. I didn't support him getting the nomination. He's been my friend for quite a few years. I've helped him on multiple campaigns in the past, but I kind of saw this shit coming, and that was my major reason for not supporting him or Rechtenwald. they were the two at the bottom of my list because I knew that it was inevitably going to look like this, like everything that's happened, whether it's Colorado and New Hampshire and Tennessee trying to pull him off the ballot, or New Mexico and like Massachusetts and Texas or something like that. It's going to be the party just trying to eat itself alive, regardless of if it's those two candidates. There were a few people in the middle that were a little bit more palatable, I think, that would have not murdered the party. I was backing Lars Mapstead for a few reasons, but that was one of the major reasons why I wasn't looking at either of the two people that most of my friends were supporting. But all that being said, I am a libertarian. I support the party over really anything. I care more about down ballot candidates than I'll ever care about any presidential campaign. And so I just want to see the word libertarian get spread this cycle like it does every cycle, preferably with with as little baggage as humanly possible. And that's not what we're doing this cycle. We're trying to spread that word with as much baggage as humanly possible. Because it's either people like LPNH responding to every single tweet that Chase has calling him a faggot, or you have, other people who aren't even in the party responding to every single one of Chase's tweets, calling him a Nazi for still being part of the party, and all of this other bullshit. And all that does is mean that my friends and your friends and everybody else's friends and family who were trying to get to look at the party, to look at the ideals, to maybe be like, hey, these guys aren't crazy psychos in a bunker like Criminal Minds told me they were. Maybe these are legitimate dudes. If they happen to be like, you know what, Jacob was making some good points the other day. Let me Google this libertarian thing. The first thing that's going to come up is pedo groomer for president, Nazis take over party. And I'm just sick of dealing with that shit. So that is my main reason for defending and trying to let even less publicly just get people to stop attacking Chase as publicly as they are, is because at the end of the day, this campaign is not going to matter for shit. Just like the Joe Jorgensen campaign didn't matter for shit. But what matters is that at least 3 out of 10 people that I talk to just on the street, door knocking, petitioning, whatever, think that the Libertarian Party is a woke, BLM supporting commie bullshit party because they caught the tiny snippet of the news that was the prevailing news from us last cycle of that one stupid tweet from Joe Jorgensen. Nothing else about that campaign mattered except for that one single tweet that actually broke out into the mainstream. And now there's probably a solid 5 to 10 million people that will never look at our party or our movement because a bunch of people decided to blow something out of proportion. And that's going to be the same case. Yeah. It's going to be in 2027. No one is going to give a fuck about who was on Chase's campaign, what platform positions he had, or anything like that. We're going to be arguing about the next race and the next candidate. Probably going to be a whole new slate of people, probably 2 brand new caucuses going after each other. But there's still going to be another 10 million people that got pushed away from our movement because we told them that all we are a bunch of pedos and Nazis.
Yeah. Now, I actually can agree with wanting to defend the party because, well, first of all, I am still a libertarian, even though we tend to be a bunch, or we are perceived as a bunch of pedo Nazis, which is a really interesting dichotomy when you point it out, because that's like, I have met neither in the party.
Unfortunately, I've met both. I've been around long enough to where I have definitely met both in the party.
Well, I'm not saying they don't exist, but point out any that doesn't exist in any of the other parties,
Right. Yeah.
So it's not a libertarian problem. It's not unique to us. It's these people exist and they are going to be involved in politics in one fashion or another.
And
so
they're more likely to be
involved
with us. I'll just like, it's a fringe people go to fringe groups in the thing that they care about. There's a reason that some of these problem people do make up a higher percentage of our party than some of the
Yeah.
other ones, but they also make up a higher percentage of attendees at an anime convention. And not to shit on like anime at all, but it's just like fringe people go to fringe groups where they can feel more accepted and be more heard, be a bigger fish in a smaller pond.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, we're going to get more of those like, well, if the government stayed out of my business, then I could fuck kids. Then
Yeah.
that is a path to libertarian ideology, unfortunately, but there is those dots and those people are going to end up here eventually. But
Yeah.
it's not what we are. And those people are not the people prevalent in the party. Those are the weird libertarians in the bunker
Yeah.
that Criminal Minds talks about.
Yeah. True. So there was, I tried to find the tweet because it would perfectly illustrate kind of the position I'm coming from, because I definitely don't agree with a lot of these people coming out against Chase. I definitely don't agree with all of them. Some of them I do, most of them I don't. But there was actually a conversation on Twitter I had, or X, whatever, that I had with Susan Hogarth, of all people, who her and I, like, we're not like close. We don't talk, but I thought it was really interesting. And the point that I had made to her is that it doesn't matter that Chase is gay. And she said, yeah, I completely agree. And I said, well, at least we can agree on that, because reason doesn't. And of course, I'm pretty sure most libertarians can't stand reason at this point, but the picture that they decided to run with Chase after convention was him holding a rainbow "Don't Tread on Me" flag and like some pro LGBTQ community T-shirt. And it's like, well, it doesn't matter that he's gay, though. Like, I'm not going to vote for him because he's gay. Like, that doesn't matter to me. And
Yeah.
if it matters to some people, that's fine. But that's also, considering the political climate, that's not the foot that he should be leading with, because that is going to back him into a corner of, well, he's just woke, unfortunately. So, or fortunately, however you look at it, but that just seems to be that, publicly speaking, just from an optics standpoint, if it doesn't matter that much, because it doesn't, then he shouldn't, or people shouldn't be running with that support him.
Okay, let me ask you a question on that. Do you think that Candace Owens coming up talking about how black she is constantly backed her into a corner of being woke?
Yes.
Or did it
sort
open
of.
up black people to actually finally be able to be conservative for the first time in like a decade and a half?
I think a bit of both, but it also landed a bunch of backfire. So
And the LP candidate's going to get backfired no matter what. I think that,
exactly.
and I'll also say that like having the nomination happen 4 days before Pride Month starts, and then nominating a gay person for president, and then having the next 31 days be Pride Month, made people jump to conclusions and kind of, I think, make bigger deals out of things than what actually happened. If you look at his campaign in the last 3 months since then, he's toned that down a lot. But during Pride Month, when there was parades everywhere celebrating him and his identity that he could latch onto and go to these events with tens of thousands of people and talk about how you don't have to be a Democrat just because you're gay, was a valuable thing to do for that period of time. And he's not doing that same style of campaigning since then. But it was the first month of his campaign, and people were kind of like, oh my God, is this all you're going to talk about? It was very bad timing, I think, for the public perception of what his campaign would
that I
look
will
like
agree with.
in the throughout. I think now that like this episode is happening way later than it was originally supposed to, I can actually point to like he's toned that down a hell of a lot. He doesn't wear the rainbows and the pride pins, and he wears his Star Trek pin more often than he wears his pride flag pin, because he's more of a nerd than he is gay, and that's that's not something that I've heard him say on stage, but that's something he said to me privately. Is just like, that's like the fourth most important thing about me, but it's still up there. Like there's, and so yeah, I think campaigning to a group of people who traditionally feel like they're not allowed to look outside of the major party that they're currently in is worth doing, in a similar way to like a Shane Hazel campaigning on the fact that he was a veteran.
Yes.
85% of his campaign. I don't give a shit that he's a veteran. I would vote for him either way because he was a pretty good candidate. Definitely the best candidate in any of the races he's run in. But a bunch of people do care that he's a veteran. And a bunch of people in Georgia did wake up to the fact that, like, oh, we don't have to be Republicans just because we're vets. And there actually is a party that actually cares about us instead of just giving us lip service. And he was able to wake up more people within his people group than he would have been able to if he just buckshot libertarian ideals to a little bit of everybody. And I get that a presidential campaign kind of has to buckshot more than a Senate, but I don't know, I think it's fairly similar.
And I agree with that. And I will definitely say that he shouldn't, like, Chase should never like hide his identity or lie about his identity. Like he shouldn't do that. The problem I had was like, take out, like, personal feelings aside, just an optics perspective, just PR alone. That was a optics nightmare coming into it like that. And maybe it was bad timing, but to lead with that is the problem I had, because it's like, yes, he is so much more than that. And if it actually isn't a woke thing, then it shouldn't matter. Although, once again, he shouldn't hide it, because then that's like betraying himself, and that I would never ask anyone to do that, especially on behalf of libertarianism, but it just, when you're running president, like, you have got to have the most broad appeal to everyone that you possibly can. And I mean, that just shut out so many people the way that it happened. And so I guess my perspective is that it could have been done in a much better way to include his community, the people that he was reaching out to, like you said, because I do view that is an important aspect, especially for libertarians. However, it has now backed him into a corner where it's shut so many people out that just, like, that's all they view of him. And so they're not even going to give him a chance otherwise.
I will. Yeah, I kind of agree with you there. I just think that a majority of the blame for that is on other libertarians that backed him into that corner. Like, I know this for a fact, having spoken to his comms director multiple times before and after the nomination, as well as him. And they don't want to be talking about most of this stuff in those first couple interviews, but because of the reaction that the internet had and the digging through all of the worst possible things that they could find about him, his first 25 interviews asked him about all of those things that people like Dave Smith and Michael Malice decided to go dig up, instead of what were actually his major talking points and platform planks. Like, a candidate who's campaigning on a bunch of woke issues doesn't win the Iowa caucus in a landslide, like, or get invited to the Iowa State Fair 2 years in a row as the only libertarian to ever get invited. Like, he was killing it in rural Republican areas, talking about issues that actually matter to everyone, while a bunch of right-wingers were online yelling at him for having like 4 or 5 positions that he rarely talks about, and trying to make it out to where that's what he was campaigning about, and making him have to answer for that constantly every time he got an interview with someone that should have been a friendly interview, from someone like within our circles, wasn't, because they wanted to talk about transing kids and the border and LGBT issues and things like that. Well, he's trying to talk about principled anti-war issues and how to make people's lives better and fix the economy. Like, those are the things that he's been campaigning on for 2 years.
Right.
And the people that disliked him decided to make it out to be like he was campaigning on something else. And obviously, yeah, like I said, like, there was Pride Month, but the blow up happened in those few days between the two, where he wasn't in Pride Month mode yet. That Reason article hadn't come out yet. It was the day after the convention. I was still in the convention hall in DC when I was responding to Dave Smith's tweets about how he would never support him, and that Chase wouldn't support Dave if Dave got the nomination either, which is ridiculous. But I don't know. You said something a little bit earlier about like kind of appealing to the broadest group of people. And traditionally, I would agree with you. Again, why I didn't support Chase going in. But I think Chase is kind of taking, or I'll take a page out of the Mises Caucus playbook and say, maybe that isn't the best strategy. It is kind of the strategy we've tried for the last 3 cycles in a row. Maybe messaging like a loud, principled, anti-war, pro-gun, just radical, out there in your face campaign that maybe alienates some people who are probably never going to be libertarians, but actually wakes up a giant chunk of people who are already kind of curious about us. I don't know. I wouldn't hate it if that actually worked. I don't think it's going to this cycle because of the backlash. A good LP campaign this year required people like Dave and Malice and even like the Tim Pools and the not libertarians that are kind of friendly to us. Unfortunately, getting on Rogan and that kind of stuff. Like, that's the only way that we had a shot at doing anything good this year. And I don't think Rec would have done it. I knew Chase wasn't going to do it. That's why I supported Lars and to some degree like Termot and a few other people. Because I think they might have been able to make it work.
Yeah. And I agree with that. It's just like, so the way I see it is like, I would have loved to see Chase at some point recognize some of these things. Like the controversies are all in a category of themselves, but just the fact of him being a gay man, just being like, well, yes, I am gay, but let's talk about things that actually matter, because like that's who I am. That's not what I am, and
which he's done on multiple interviews that I've watched. It's just, I don't know, probably not enough.
Well, I mean, it's clearly overshadowed, right? So there part of that I will say is that he should have had a plan in place for some of that, though. Because you can't tell me that, that was a huge surprise that, maybe to the extent was a bit of a surprise, but the fact that it happened, that people were going to be upset about some of these positions, I would find that hard to believe that that was a surprise.
Yeah. I think they thought that they could just kind of pivot off of them enough or something. I'm not really sure.
Yeah.
But I agree. I also think that, the fact that there was that other Twitter account of his back from like 2011 to 2013 that somebody went and found that wasn't already scrubbed from the internet. Like, come on, guys. Like, some of the things, in my opinion, are just rookie mistakes from a campaign team that's run presidential campaigns before. That just, and part of that's because they only had half of who they have now leading up to convention. But so a lot of that should have been mitigated beforehand so that Malice couldn't go through and find all. I know I'm picking on Malice a lot, but he's the one that like really did a lot of the digging. I like Michael, and I'm still a fan of his and whatever, but like, he's the one that really did a lot of the legwork on this one.
Yeah.
And so that there just shouldn't have been that stuff for him to go find. Some of it, other of it is just being blown out of proportion. Like one of the pictures is him in a like charcoal face mask, and everybody's calling it blackface. It's like, no, he's just gay and cares about his skin. Like, come
ridiculous.
on. I think Malice is trolling when he says that. Like, he's not actually that dumb. He just included that in a bunch of other things he was semi-serious about in a troll post. And then a bunch of other morons on the internet are actually like, oh, you support the candidate who did blackface. You support the LP Trudeau. Like, is what I keep hearing. And it's like,
oh my God.
Come on.
Like, I'm not a Chase supporter, but I know for a fact he's not out there doing blackface. That's ridiculous.
The picture with the Confederate flag is real, though.
Interesting. I haven't seen that one either. That's funny.
It exists. That one did get scrubbed from the internet, but it got found somehow, and got posted like pretty early on. That was just like a joke post that he made like a while ago. Because he used to be a podcaster, like a non-political, just like internet personality, like not successful, but like, you know, like one of us. So he did a bunch of dumb shit to just, you know, in accordance with that I honestly, going back and looking through some of the stuff that was getting taken down was really fun for me. I was like, this makes me respect you a little more.
You
actually used to have a personality. What was that like?
And see, here's the thing. So like any of my feelings towards Chase has never been personal, like not once, because other than the fact that I tried to reach out to him before convention and, you know, I never heard back anything. Other than that, then none of my like feelings towards him is personal. But the one thing I can say is, like, as a county chair, I had some severely angry emails come through, and the most angry one actually had nothing to do with the woke stuff, but it was actually the Ron Paul comment. And that, I mean, I'm not even sure what to say about that. That was not a good moment for him. Even though, I mean, people can have their own opinions about Ron Paul, but that seems like a pretty cheap blow in my opinion. And
I will say it was in response to a pretty low moment of Ron's as well.
Yeah.
Because it was about when Ron basically said that COVID was completely fake and that no one was actually dying from it, and that all of those stories were just the media, which, like, we can be honest, it's the one time Ron Paul wasn't right. Like, he was blatantly and demonstratively wrong on that. People did die. We all, or almost everyone I know, knows at least one or two people. I know at least four. Like, it was a real thing that actually did kill people, and he was wrong about that. I think that Chase overreacted, but it's not like that was in response to some of the BS about like the emails and Lou Rockwell or any of the other like bullshit drama with Ron Paul. That was in response to Ron actually having a big L take. Like, but yeah, something I had a conversation with Chase about when he first announced was like, you need to go back and rectify some of this stuff. Like between that post and like the post Reno kind of rage quit of like, don't use my like name and likeness and whatever. Like that kind of stuff needed to be addressed and really like kind of rectified. And I don't feel like it ever was, at least not correctly.
I'm going to have to agree with that. You know, being part of the Reno reset, not him per se, but a lot of his camp, you know, treated a lot of me and my friends very badly and got a lot of terrible treatment. And then he made a comment about wanting to like unify the party. And it's like, okay, well, there's going to be a whole lot of stuff that, you know, you're going to have to denounce that your friends did. So, I mean, I agree that there were bad things on both sides. However, I mean, there was a lot of things that you guys did that I wasn't a big fan of, which was the whole reason I was on the Mises Caucus side to begin with.
Yeah.
Wasn't even necessarily that I disagreed with a lot of those people. It was more so it's just like, well, I can't agree with that. And so I got labeled, Nazi or whatever because of that. And it's like, well, that's insane.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I kind of agree that has yet to be addressed the way that it is. And of course that's like inside baseball stuff, that's
Mm-hmm.
people outside the party, they don't care about that.
Yeah. And like, I'll say the same thing for Angela, right? Like, she just won for her second time, and she's paid a lot of lip service to unification and working together and whatever, but also hasn't like denounced or disavowed a lot of the actions taken by her friends and confidants, and like, and not even just like people that are technically associated with her, like her actual like close friends are some of the people, the like instigators of a lot of these issues. I don't, yeah, neither side has done the actual gracious thing that Spike Cohen told them to do in Reno,
Yeah.
which is like, be like, all right, now that we're here, like whichever side wins needs to be better than they were, and instead both sides just got worse and then went into DC, and then it's getting even worse. I don't foresee either side being like, oh, sorry, my bad, anytime soon.
Yeah.
And
I think there's too many deep wounds at this point on both sides.
Chase is about the best. I'd say he's one of the people who is definitely on a side that is the least on that side. There's a lot of people like me who never picked a side and are still in the middle somewhere, but like lean one way or the other. He's like definitely in a side of the war, but has been, for the most part, there are a few tweets and posts that we can nitpick, but
yeah,
God, if somebody went through my Twitter and Facebook the way that they just went through Chase's to see how many times I've called people in the LP out and called them really mean names, or like vague booked about somebody that you could pretty easily figure out who it's about. You go all the way back to 2017 when I was running for city council and having a feud with like a public feud with a presidential candidate. Like, there's some shit you can go through and find. So I think all in all, I think like what is dig upable of Chase is pretty fucking minimal compared to some of the dirt that exists on like genuinely, if your complaint about this ticket is that there is a gay person who said some mean things about other LP members, and it's not the fact that there's a former cop who used qualified immunity to get out of a charge that he should have gotten for police brutality, like,
yeah,
like that's not your issue. Your priorities are a little messed up. Like, if you have an issue with the ticket, it should be Mike.
yeah, and I was gonna try and leave Mike out of this because I have my own personal opinions. I liked him a lot before convention. I didn't think he was gonna swing anyone in any direction. But I'm not a huge fan of him now. Definitely not. It's especially the qualified immunity, and just some things that I've heard through the grapevine from people. It's just better for me to distance myself. It's not one of those. I don't throw support behind him. So that's.
I still like Mike a lot. Him and I have been friends since he was in the planning stages of his congressional race. I almost worked with him on that. And his like comms director throughout the primary was one of my better friends in the party, Gabby Cordova, who's just like an amazing person.
Yeah.
And so booking him on my show is a breeze because it's just texting my friend. And so I've had him on quite a few times and met in person and hung out quite a few times. And as usual, he married up. So his wife is awesome and great to hang out with. And I will say, out of everybody on the stage at convention, he was the second best candidate that we had running. And like heads above third and fourth and like the rest. I think it went Charles Belay, Mike Termont, and like pretty far down is a Lars, then Chase, and then the rest. But he like just the actual skills that it takes to be a candidate, Mike has, and he is doing really well with. Similar to a Gary Johnson type, where it's just, you know, maybe I don't love everything about them, but they're doing a pretty good job. They command a room. When a voter meets them, they go, yeah, I can vote for this guy, which is rare in a libertarian candidate to have someone actually, you know, just control and command a room. He has that presence that when he walks in, even if he's just in a fairly normal suit and tie like everybody else, you can tell that he's the candidate, even if it's just him and his wife. He doesn't have the entourage or anything. He just commands the room in a way that most people in our movement don't. And it was nice to see. Like,
it was nice to see a professional, because that's the one thing I will still say is that even from when he launched his presidential run in Reno, and every time I had interacted with him since then, it was just professional. And it was really refreshing to see somebody running as a libertarian acting as such. That was a huge breath of fresh air.
Yeah. I am, this is completely off topic, but since I just said it, I'll double down just in case people didn't hear me. I'm really excited to see Charles Belay continue on his libertarian journey, and I really hope he runs again, preferably for something a little bit smaller. But he is the best candidate I've worked. Like, I didn't work with him, but like I got to interact with him a lot, and we took a bus or the same van ride from one convention to another. It was like 7.5 hours with like Belay, Oliver, and Mapstead's teams just all crammed into a van together. And with some coaching and some work and some getting used to being a candidate, not just a doctor, he could genuinely flip his city gold and like be the mayor of he's in New Orleans, not Baton Rouge. Yeah, New Orleans. Like, that's a thing that I think he could do in 2 years. So that'll be fun to
see that.
Yeah,
would love to see it.
So teachable, so personable. Just like the kind of person that I would actually want to be his field director, campaign manager, somebody working with him on the back end. I could actually see that working well. A lot of the other candidates, I was like, nah, no, never.
Yeah. And, you know, president is kind of a tricky ticket to begin with, because we all know we're not going to win. Nor do I think we really should in the first place, because even if we did, we're not going to get anything done. We're going to be railroaded the whole time. So it's almost pointless for us to win. And so it's kind of who could even match any of the biggest personalities that are out there right now. And, you know, at the time, Joe Biden, Donald Trump, who the hell could we even put out there that would even come close to any of the news cycles? Yeah. Dave Smith, 100%. And you know what? Like, I don't know how you feel about it. I'm still pissed. But I'm also not pissed at the same time. Like, I understand, although the public reason he gives, I think is a bit of a cop out, and I don't understand that. And if that is the true reason, then that's fine. But I wish he would give a better reason for not wanting to run. So
if I'm not mistaken, and it's been a while since we've talked about it, but I'm 99% sure that his kid has the same like genetic heart defect as my niece. And so kind of watching my sister's first 3 or 4 years with my niece, I think, from what I understand, his kid turned out a lot healthier than my niece did, who is actually like now completely fine. Also, uh, I don't think it ended up being as big of a problem as a well-informed, good-meaning doctor would have told him it was going to be. Because even my niece was kind of on the better side of average, but about in the middle. It could have been a lot worse. He could have spent the first 3 years where kid saw the house for maybe a total of a month in those first 3 years.
Yeah.
Was just in and out of surgeries and hospital rooms and stuff like that. So it being kind of in that time frame where he doesn't really know what to expect in a situation like that, I can't diss him too much for the cop out. Also, from what I understand, the wife made it mostly not a question.
Yeah. Yeah, I could
Is,
see that. I mean, it's just kind of a big battle because as much as people might disagree with me, he is one of these voices that actually can carry, that does demand attention from people. And maybe it's the comedian in him or something,
mm,
but I as a lifelong student of history, I look back at, the 250 plus founding fathers we had. I'm a big fan of a lot of the lesser known, but I mean, these people literally put everything on the line.
mhm,
And although I'm not like a doomer, like, oh, if we don't elect Donald Trump, the whole world's gonna explode tomorrow,
mhm,
like I'm not quite there, but I also realize like how bad everything truly is. And we are running out of time to where we need people to not vote for Donald Trump or Joe Biden or Kamala Harris, like we really need people on our side. And so
yeah,
it's like I do understand, and that's why I'm not upset, especially at the state of the LP. I kind of viewed it as like, well, I wouldn't want to represent that. like I wouldn't want to
yeah,
be like, this is who I am and this is what I represent, like we
yeah,
kind of didn't give him that thing to put everything on the line. And
mhm,
so that's why I'm not too mad about it. But on the other hand, it's like, I mean, some of these people, like they did put everything on the line. So that's why I'm kind of torn about it.
yeah. I think there's a line in Les Mis, which I know isn't our founding fathers, but it's close fucking enough. Um, it's who cares about your lonely soul? We strive towards a larger goal. Our little lives don't count at all.
Yeah.
And I've taken that one to heart for a while when it comes to establishing my priorities like that. And now that I am a husband and a father, that's a lot harder. Um,
Yeah.
and to be fair, that song is about single people who are like who's like chasing a girl he just fucking met, not an actual
Yeah.
put together family, which I do think there's a big
Yeah.
difference in. Um, but there were a lot of nights that I could have been out at the bar or whatever trying to find a girlfriend and was, petitioning or canvassing or doing a podcast trying to help a candidate get better coverage,
Yeah.
stuff like that. Um, yeah, I don't, but it's wild because I don't think I'll ever be the person the way that Dave was. Like he was
Yeah.
like a singular piece. Like it was really him or Spike
Yeah.
were the only people that could have done anything the way that we wanted to see this cycle happen. And especially with Amash jumping ship back into the GOP, like that just left the
Yeah.
two of them, and neither of them did it.
Yeah. And that I don't know, that just kind of took the sails out of everything,
Hmm.
or took the wind out of the sails is what I meant. But
It
I
also
I don't
made
know.
the primary unfucking bearable
Yes.
because you had a bunch of people who wouldn't give or support or work on anyone's campaign until they knew for sure Spike or Dave weren't running. And both of them waited until the day before to fucking actually announce that they weren't running.
Yeah.
Obviously hyperbolic, but and then you had like the Mises Caucus divide of the like Josh Smith versus Rechtenwald thing that happened.
Yeah, and that's a whole other shitstorm.
Michael
Like,
Heiss and Josh Smith on Dan Smott's show, co-hosted by Dave Casey, is one of the greatest pieces of media ever made. That show was such a goddamn shit
yes,
show.
yes, yes, it was,
I
and I'd
felt so
recommend.
bad for Dan the whole time. I'm just like, bro, are you okay? Like, do you need? Should I call it a wellness check on you? Because he's just sitting there, just like,
Yeah,
fuck.
yeah. I mean, both like I fell on the Josh Smith camp, although I knew that things were gonna not end up super great because of him stepping down as vice chair the way that he did. Um, like everyone stuck their necks out, and he cut it. So it was like, well, nobody's gonna want to do that again.
Mhm.
Um, but I couldn't go with Rechtenwald, and I honestly I feel genuinely bad what happened to Rechtenwald because he threw everything on the line and kind of just got screwed over by the whole thing. So, it's like
Yeah.
I don't know. I really don't know. But
Yeah, I do think of all of the people in the situation, I think he's one of the people I feel the worst for, because yeah, he got fucked because he thought it was just going to be a shoo-in. I don't know.
mhm,
I don't know if Angela and Dave and Michael and like the people around him had convinced him that Josh would just drop and endorse or something. I don't know what they thought was going to happen, but I know that Michael announced with the impression that he was just going to go to DC and get the nomination, and Angela was going to win re-election, and it was just going to be fine.
yeah.
I don't think anyone was expecting what happened.
No. I will say though, and this is probably an unpopular opinion on the, people who are not Chase supporters, but Chase's side just played the game better.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's kind of just how it is. So
Yeah.
deal with that. Like,
Yeah. I had to come to terms with that 2 rounds before y'all did.
yeah,
When Lars dropped. Like,
yeah,
really round 1 when Lars came in 4th, I knew that we lost. I knew we weren't going to get first. I thought we were going to get 3rd and then do the Jorgensen. Once we weren't the 3rd place choice,
yeah,
we had no shot. We didn't pick up people as they dropped because we weren't going to go anywhere. Termont was going to stay ahead of us the whole time. And we were just fucked. But yeah, I'm still impressed that they just played the floor game well.
Yeah, they did. Although I'm not going to say that none of it, absolutely none of it wasn't sneaky or underhanded. But once again, welcome to politics. So,
Right. Yeah.
that is part of the game, and both sides need to realize that. So, what do you think is the future of the Libertarian Party? Like, because
Oof.
there are a lot of people that really do just feel like this is kind of the end. I mean, it's never going to be the end of the party's going to exist in some fashion, right? But like, is this truly a divide that's never going to bounce back? Could we be unified?
I think at the moment we're almost in best case scenario for the unification. And this is going to come out horrible, and I'm going to piss a bunch of people off with this one. But if enough people get so pissed off that they take their ball and go home, then maybe. Because at the moment, the people at the helm of the party are not going to make it successful in any way, shape, or form. The people who were at the helm of the party are not going to take it back over and make it successful. It's got to be that secret third thing called actual libertarians who want to see libertarians win elections and spread the libertarian messaging more than they want to argue with other libertarians about how unlibertarian they are. And maybe a libertarian party made out of those people could be successful. I do genuinely believe that. But it's not going to be people that are currently aligned with the radical, audacious, or Mises caucuses that make it happen. I don't think. I think it's a lot of the people who were associated with one of those three up until like the last 2 years. You know, there's a lot of hope in some of the defectors, I think. But anyone that's stuck it out in the caucus war for this long, especially in states where it doesn't matter that much, I'm kind of like, what are we doing here?
Yeah.
But I mean, we have another cycle in 4 years if the country lasts till then. If in Grand Rapids in 26, the delegates to the Libertarian Party decide that they want to fight the state more than they want to fight other libertarians and elect people who are actually competent at doing that instead of better at agreeing with them, then we actually have 2 years of a competent LNC that's building things, and then we run Spike Cohen in 28. That'd be great. And that's a thing that could happen. That's a thing I'm going to try to work and make happen. But so far, I have been a libertarian inside the Libertarian Party for 6 years now, where my candidates don't do well ever. Almost every single person I voted for in DC took third or fourth place in the round one of their voting. And that's just who I am. That's been my thing. But hopefully, we've seen both sides do their thing. Both sides kind of fucking suck. And I think one side objectively sucks more at keeping a party afloat. One side bought a building and paid off a mortgage. The other side is about to have to go under on a second mortgage that they took out on that because they can't raise any money. I definitely would still prefer the functional and not embarrassing party that we had previous to this one. But that still wasn't gonna get us anywhere.
Yeah. I definitely view, and this is a former member of the Mises Caucus, just because it doesn't exist, and well, they don't do anything for my state, so piss on them. But the Mises Caucus, while Reno was successful, the whole overall mission was a complete failure. And I think that was for all sorts of different reasons. Was it for the better? I don't know. I am still an overall fan of Angela as chair. I thought the way that she handled the Chase thing was absolutely beautiful. Coming out of convention, everyone waiting for her. Being able to back Chase in the states that matter, that he could actually pull some people in, I thought was a genius stance to take. While I don't like a lot of the stances that people close to her have taken, or people close to Chase have taken, I do think that was probably the best way for her to move forward. And there was that one interview on DL Cummings' show, Liberty Dad Pod, where Angela had exposed a lot of things that were going on behind the scenes that a lot of people, weren't really talking about. And I thought that was incredibly important because there was a lot of people just on Twitter or X, whatever, really just running their mouths on both sides. And it's like there's a whole bunch of things that are going on that nobody knows about. And so like your opinions are really just kind of unfounded and are just making the optics of the party worse.
Yeah. That was the kind of stuff that I was trying to put a stop to early on, with little success. I definitely have a different take on Angela's handling of it. This, as can probably be assumed, but I am not like a vote cold like you're told type. I'm not. I don't think that everybody has to vote. I'm not a Nick Sarwark. I would vote for Cheney if he was a libertarian type. But I do think that when you take on a role as a party officer, you lose some of your independence. And the correct thing to do when you and your party have a split like that is not to fuck over your own party. It is to resign. Like when Tulsi Gabbard watched the DNC rig the primary in 2016 for Hillary Clinton, she didn't stay as vice chair and just talk about how it should have been Bernie Sanders, and then go try to support Trump or some other third party candidate. She resigned and endorsed Bernie and tried to, make something happen where, maybe Bernie actually got the nomination in the end. Obviously, it's too late for Angela to try to do something like that. But if you're the chair of a party and the party decides to run a candidate and you feel like you can't back that candidate fully, resign. Like it's a very, very simple solution. That is how it's handled in every other political or non-political organization. If you're the chairman of the board of Sears and they decide to do something you don't like and you lose a vote, I can't do this. You resign. It's just that's what you do. Or you suck it up and you do the thing. And she did neither, and did this whole like joint fundraising committee with RFK, and has all but endorsed Trump on multiple occasions, telling people in like swing states to vote for him, and like it's not what the chair of a party should be doing.
Probably not, but the one argument I'll make back to that is that to behave like the other two parties is not what we should be doing in the first place. So
I don't even mean like behaving like the other two parties. Like I said, like this is how it works just in a board across the board. If you're the chairman of a board and you get outvoted and you feel like you can't do the thing that you like the board or the body voted on, like it doesn't matter. I'm not just talking about parties. I'm talking about corporations and nonprofits and churches and
but she has done things to support Chase and has done everything to work with his campaign team. So it's not like she literally is kicking him to the curb. Although the Trump thing, I don't get the Trump thing.
I don't get people that act like he's actually better than Harris.
I don't know how we could look at either of them and be like, yeah, one of them.
Right. I think I have a bunch of friends that went the other way who, we have to stop Trump from getting reelected. And it's, no, we don't. It is not going to do fucking shit. I genuinely think, like, I'll make the hot take. I'm less worried about Trump, or I'm less worried about Harris than Trump.
Really?
And it has nothing to do with either of them. It's just that tyranny progresses faster with a pendulum swing. Like the same party usually slows down their tyranny as it remains in power until the other party takes back over, and then they take
Democrats
back over
have been pretty quick though.
They've only been in that was only one term though. My point is that second term, there's a higher chance that the Republicans come in and go, well, they tried to lock up Trump, so now we are going to lock up all of them. Or something, whereas maybe Harris wins and they actually do lock up Trump in some miracle where a politician goes to jail, which let's face it, that's never going to happen. They aren't going to just go from there, all right, let's lock up his entire campaign team and everyone that voted for him. Like, they won't get away with that. Where the Republicans coming back into power will be like, well, they did it, so we get to do it too. And there'll be that kind of public mandate behind a higher degree of tyranny.
Well, and we've already started seeing that with some of the supporters as well, is, like, let's give them a taste of their own medicine. And it's like, no.
Right.
Yeah. So I don't disagree with that. I mean, I still think that, like, Kamala is probably the worst choice, though, because I mean, she won't even tell us what she plans on doing, which is almost scarier. It's like walking into a really expensive boutique and not seeing any price tags on anything. It's like, okay, well, if I have to ask, I can't afford. Yeah, exactly.
That it definitely. I do think that Harris, they're very much like the two very opposite sides of a very similar coin, where Trump gets to come in as everyone believes everything he says because he's just so honest and like out there and very public and very, I don't want to say likable, but liked for whatever fucking reason, and has that almost populist, more right wing thing behind him.
He's an 80s Democrat,
but he somehow has that, and I'm not doing the thing, but he has more of the Hitler energy, right? Of that, like, actually come up and bring the people behind him and like have the power to actually do crazy things because he got that many people to support him. Where Harris, I don't think, has nearly as much crazed support, but she is the perfect pick for the establishment. Like, she is everything they have ever wanted. She is a woman of color who somehow is also still somewhat likable and can put on a good face. She is a great puppet. Her opinions matter nothing, which is why she doesn't have any. And they just get to do whatever the fuck they want. And she is going to sign off on anything that makes her feel like she has more power.
Yeah.
Which they'll include little tidbits of executive power into everything that they do, just enough to make her go along with it and make up some story to push it to the public. Like, she is way more of like a Big Brother in a 1984 type scenario, where it just kind of happened, and all of a sudden it's like, yep, this is our life and that's our overlord and we trust them. Like, with no crazy uprising or like, there's two ways to get to totalitarianism, and it's either apathy or populism. And I think,
well, it kind of seems like we're both choices, like we're there, and I'll tell you this right now, because I've had a hard time deciding who I was going to vote for. And although I am against Chase, I'm probably still going to vote for him. That's probably the route I'm going to take. And it's because even though I have an issue with some of his stances, I still can't vote for the two major parties. I can't have my name, as pointless as it may be, I can't have my name on an official piece of paper anywhere backing one of these two parties. I just can't, because it really does seem like doomsday, whether we choose Republican or Democrat. And I mean, either party will get us to totalitarianism. It's just a matter of what speed. And I think at this point, we're probably working at the same speed, because, Republicans are notorious for, being socialists, driving the speed limit or whatever. And I agree with that, except for now. This is like the revenge tour. And so there's going to be a lot of things which, I can't say that everything he would do would be bad, but there are definitely going to be things that he does that are going to be very bad.
Yeah. And I don't think anything pisses me off more than people that lie about Trump and what he will do.
Yeah.
Oh, wow, that's delicious. Sorry. Because like the most annoying talking point this cycle is a federal abortion ban. Like him and JD Vance are on record almost 100 times combined saying that there is no chance that they will ever support a federal abortion ban. It's not on their platform. It's not like they don't want it. And yet it's all the Republicans can talk about is like, oh, they're gonna ban abortion if they get elected. No, they won't.
Or Project 2025.
Right. And, you know, they'll read into some weird snippet that they pull from oh, look at Trump endorsed Project 2025. He said he's going to do. No, that's some like rando QAnon level, like Redditor made bullshit that a bunch of people who like Trump have signed on to. I think that's the problem. It's like there's higher ups in his world, like the I don't know if her specifically, but like the Loomer types, who have said some things about it and like how cool it would be. That's given it a little bit of credence. Trump never has.
Yeah, he's come out against it.
Mm-hmm.
He's never read it. He has no interest in it. You know, like how much more blatant does he have to be? But I guess they're still running with, you know, the very fine people lie. So.
Right. Or like I don't want to go on a tirade defending Trump right now, but I'm going to do it. The he's a convicted felon line is the one I get the most on Twitter because I've been arguing with Democrats a lot in the last few days just because it's so much fun. And they're like, oh, so you're going to vote for the convicted felon? They're like, first of all, no, I'm not. I'm going to vote for Chase Oliver, who, to the best of my knowledge, has never been caught for committing a crime, or at least not a serious one like that. But also, it was political crucifixion that trial was. Like even as someone who has not liked Trump ever, from as a TV personality to a New York City personality as a New Yorker to a presidential candidate, then a president, like I've never liked him ever, never supported him in no way ever. But like, you can't tell me that like that's a reason that I shouldn't vote for him. Because you guys made some mock trial and stuck some convictions on him for some bullshit that I, as an anarchist, don't give a single solitary fuck about those crimes. I mean, fraud is one of those things that I do have a problem with, but the kind of fraud that they're accusing him of, don't give a shit about. So
falsifying some business records. Yeah.
Like if they had gone after him for like Trump University, or if they had gone after him for his history with some of like his real estate projects in New York, like I have good friends that got their lives ruined by the Trump family because of some of the shit that they've done. If they had gone after him for any of the actual like really serious fraud that he's committed and ruined lives for, this would be a legitimate criticism. But it's not. They tried to go after him for the election shit. That didn't work. So they stuck this other random crap out of nowhere. Like it was political persecution from the beginning, and they never actually cared about righting any wrongs or healing any wounds or anything like that. They don't care about the people that Trump may have supposedly hurt. They just care about hurting Trump. And that's not a reason to not vote for him at all. And it's the one I get the most. Like 80 to 90% of the comments that I get online are about him being a felon. You guys are idiots.
Yeah, I completely agree. First of all, you know, our country was founded by people who were considered felons. So the whole felony thing, like it's lost on me. Like I don't care. You know, I think felons get a bum rap in most cases. You know, any nonviolent felon shouldn't lose their gun rights. You know, like they should be able to get their voting rights back. You know, there's all sorts of things. I don't give a shit about the felon thing. Like I just don't, you know, like outside of some very particular crimes, you know, some violent felons, I don't even really care about. You know, one of my best friends used to be a bank robber, you know, and he went to prison for armed bank robbery. So, you know, I wasn't Like,
Yeah, that's kind of
I don't
serious.
know. Yeah, it's a pretty serious crime.
But that doesn't necessarily make me dislike your friend. I kind of want to
Yeah.
meet him now. Like,
Yeah,
if
right.
he's
I
out,
mean,
like, let's hang out.
yeah, he was out. He's got a family now.
There
He's
you
the one
go.
that taught me how to tattoo, you know? So it's like,
I like him even more.
right? And so it's just like one of these things. I just don't care about the felon thing. It just
Mhm.
I don't care. So what? It's like most of these people who are holding office should be multiple felons several times over that have committed way worse crimes than Trump probably has, you know, like
Mhm.
literal treason, you know?
Yeah.
And here's the thing about Trump. I've always defended him, not because I like him, but because people lie about him. There's more than enough there. You don't have to lie about the guy. I mean,
Right.
his mentor was Roy Cohn. Come on,
Right.
you know?
That's kind of where
And
I'm at with Chase sometimes. It's like I don't want to be out here being a surrogate for Chase. I'd much
yeah,
rather we were talking about You Are the Power or the Mobility Independence Foundation or Free Speech
yeah,
Media or something like that. But if enough people are going to say dumb shit about him, he's still my friend. I'm going to defend him
yeah,
even more so than I defend Trump because he is my friend. Um, but like, yeah, it really bothers me the kind of attacks that people level against the two major party candidates, but it's on purpose, right? Of course they're not
yeah,
gonna the media's not gonna show the actual real things that the government's doing wrong. They're gonna
yeah,
try to make all this other stuff up. But I will throw out there, just because I defended Trump a bunch. If you are a conservative Christian, like family first person who cares about the nuclear family and traditional values, and that's what you're voting for, you should be voting for Kamala Harris and Tim Walz. Like if you think that the multiple times married person whose wife won't touch him, whose kids hate him, who's fucked a bunch of porn stars and has like 87 different like allegations of different things. Like, I'm not even gonna call, like, he's not I don't think he's necessarily a rapist, but I definitely think he's a sexual assaulter, and even if he's never done anything non-consensual, he's definitely done a lot of non-Christian, like non-godly things. Like,
yeah,
and to put him next to, I mean, Kamala's not perfect. Let's be real, like her in that area either, but the last 10 or so years, 20 years, whatever, she's been a happily married woman raising two kids who both turn out pretty all right. Same with
married
Walls.
to a
Like,
white guy.
yeah, like, um, if you're a white supremacist that's voting, Republican, fucking you can vote for the black person who's mixing with white people and diluting that back down, or you can vote for the person who's bringing immigrants over and marrying them. Like, let's
I just think it's
which is
funny
it?
because she trashes white people so much, and it's like,
Yeah. Same
how
with
does
like
your
same
husband
with
feel
all
about
of
that?
them though.
Yeah,
That's one of my favorite trends. It's like AOC and Ilhan Omar and Ayanna Presley, and like they're all married to like nerdy looking white
yep,
dudes. Like AOC's husband looks like fucking Ed Sheeran.
he does. He does. He does. That's so funny.
But yeah, I think it is really ridiculous to look at Trump and JD Vance and be like,
Yeah,
those are the people that are going to promote my Christian like family values better than these two happily married Christians who like raised their kids fairly well. They all turn out like, there is one of choice that is dramatically more pro family values, and it is not the Republican Party.
yeah. And you know what? I don't know how any voters can take either candidate seriously at this point.
Yeah.
Um, I don't know how anyone's looking at them, and the very fact that they are so worried of the other candidate winning because of all of these terrible things happening tells you more than enough that our politicians are far too powerful,
Yes.
because this shouldn't matter this much. because I do agree it's going to be bad no matter who wins. And the fact that they have that much power is completely terrifying.
Yeah. And that, to put a bow on it, is why I am supporting the only presidential candidate who is actually talking about that stuff from a principled anti-war, anti-large government, pro-gun, like pro First and Second Amendment, like principled libertarian stance. Because he's the only one. Like I would never put my support behind any of the other third party candidates at the moment either. Like Cornel West, I think, is my number 2.
Yeah.
Even when RFK was still in the race, he was the bottom of my list.
Yeah.
So yeah, like I think for someone who is a libertarian or an anarchist, in this cycle, if he's on your ballot, like it's either Chase or not voting are the only logical choices, because there's no one else in the race that's actually supporting anything close to what you believe in, and neither candidate winning is going to stop bad things from happening that you're afraid of happening.
Yeah. Now, like the problem I have with Chase, I don't think is actually ever going to come up if he were even ever to win president in the first place. So while I completely and utterly disagree with his stance, it's just one of these things like that's never going to come up for president anyways. And so it's kind of just like whatever, like it doesn't,
Yeah.
it's just, I don't know. So like I said, I'll probably end up voting Chase or not voting, because I agree. I think those are the only two stances to take at this point. The one thing I keep reminding myself is do not let the good be ruined by the perfect.
Mm-hmm.
And while Chase, in my mind, is not the perfect libertarian candidate, he is leaps and bounds above Trump or Kamala or Cornel West or Jill Stein or any of these other people. And like I said, all of my criticisms, other than just one, which the criticism itself doesn't exactly matter, but it's none of this is personal against Chase to begin with.
Mm-hmm.
This is mainly just because, I look at it from an optics standpoint and things are fucked. Like we're just in a really bad position in this country right now. And, somebody who's, 80, 90% there, like I'm fine with that,
Yeah.
I don't somebody who would
Sorry.
Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I don't think I've ever voted for anyone that I agreed with 100%, and I voted for myself. Like even checking point. That box, I was like, "Are you sure that you're the best choice here?" I mean, in that one, I genuinely actually did believe that I would have been the best choice. But yeah, like it's even that same here. I voted for one of my best friends in the party at the time, Devin Balkine, for public advocate, and even him and I have some fairly major policy disagreements. He's kind of a technocrat in a few ways, and so like just trusts the possibilities of like open source and AI and some of those things, and like definitely, like, he obviously isn't pro RoboCop, but he's pro the slippery slope that I think gets us there, and we've had those arguments a bunch of times, right? But of course he was better than some like fucking progressive dipshit Democrat that opened up the New York City Department of like race relations basically, and like spends $500,000 a year just like educating white people on how to talk to black people. I think I still would have preferred that go into an algorithm that tries to help reduce crime or whatever the fuck, like, let's be real here. So yeah, and there's nothing from Chase that I disagree with nearly enough for it to be a deal breaker. I have my issues. Most of my issues with him are on internal party stuff, though. Like my big problems with Chase are how he feels about some of my friends and people that I care about a lot, and he thinks are terrible people. That's like my big issue. His political takes his touchy ones I don't give a shit about. I have no opinion on trans and kids. I refuse to have an opinion on that, just like I kind of refuse to have an opinion on like Israel Palestine. Like, I'm just not gonna. Nope. I have one. I don't have a public one. Uh,
That's
like
fair.
I don't care what your take is there, but I think it's cool that Chase is pretty like loudly like anti-war and pro-Palestine in a respectful way that's clearly not the crazy left-wing progressive anti-Semitic bullshit that we are seeing out there. He's giving a like very Jew-friendly criticism of Israel that like hits that kind of sweet spot very well. I'm happy to see that from him. So yeah, there's nothing from him that would make me like not vote that way. And honestly, there was nothing from anyone on the stage in DC that would have made me not vote for them. I would have voted for every single one of them if they made it on the ballot in my state.
Yeah. Yeah.
As it stands, I'm probably voting RFK if he stays on my ballot.
Yeah. We'll start wrapping up with this, but I do find it interesting though that so many states have come out with the possibility of removing Chase Oliver. And I think this brings up like a bigger issue like within the party itself. Because it could have been anyone. But what does the party do if there are so many people within the party that truly do feel that the candidate does not represent them? Because other than certain legal obligations, technically the party's not a democracy. So, and I think there possibly should be something that, individual states should be able to do. Do I think that it's right this time around? I don't know. I'm not going to put my opinion out there for that, but I do think that there should be something that individual states can do.
I have a crazy idea. What if the party that fundamentally believes that the federal government shouldn't exist stops operating as if the federal government exists? Knowing that there is a 0% chance of victory in the United States presidential election for the Libertarian Party. Like we knew that going in, no matter who it was, we weren't winning, right?
Right.
There is zero reason to not run multiple candidates in various states.
Yeah.
You could have had all of the NOTA states have Rechtenwald on their ballot instead. Who gives a fuck? Like, it genuinely doesn't detract from really anything. As long as they don't act like they are right now. If they could be cordial with each other and be like, if you like me, well, this is my counterpart running in your state. He's got a little bit of a different message, but, we're on the same team, so that they could both utilize all of the people that they were bringing in. We could have run 3 or 4 candidates, and there's really nothing bad about it. The only thing is there's no chance we win.
Yeah. Which doesn't change.
But actually, here's the crazy thing. If in the wild world that those 4 different candidates combined win enough electoral college votes to be into 270, all of their electors can still join together and put whichever one has the most electors into the White House. That's up to them. They can all be faithless electors, and well, Rechtenwald got 28 of us or whatever. Everybody else got 22 or less. It's Rechtenwald. Boom. And we would have the ability to do that in the end. So even in the wild world where we could win, we could still win doing that. There's no reason for us to actually have a national candidate. None.
So I think you actually hit on an important point, and I think so. It doesn't actually matter who we're winning, because we should be focused on this overall message, right? Mm-hmm. This overall message of actual freedom and liberty. And that's why I kind of didn't really care. Like, it wasn't at the end of the day, I think it is fair to say that it doesn't matter who the candidate is. What matters is, are they actually for freedom and liberty? And that's one thing that always pissed me off about the rivalry between caucuses or whatever. It's like, well, this doesn't matter because even though I don't like you, not you, but just whoever, like I can still work with you because we still have like the same mode. And in our liberated world, we don't have to be friends. Like I don't have to be your neighbor, like we don't have to talk to each other. That's not why I'm here, like, and I think if more people just kind of took that attitude towards this, we would probably get a lot more done.
Yeah. Some of my favorite people in the party I have muted on Twitter. Like just so I don't get into fights with them, like because they're annoying online. But they do great work where they do work, and I want to maintain that friendship. And so I follow them, they follow me, and I just have them muted, and then we just don't argue.
That's fair.
And then I go on their show, or they come on mine, or their organization helps me out, or whatever, and it's fine. Because like they don't have to. You think Nancy Pelosi and AOC are good friends?
Hell no.
But yet they're successful together. If they come together on an issue, it wins almost all the time.
That's true. Well, and that's another thing I wish libertarians would kind of remember is, say if we did win at any level, we are going to have to work with other people. We can't work with just libertarians. Yeah. And so some of these coalitions, while I don't agree with coalitioning with the establishment, we're running a candidate for the establishment. Mm-hmm. And so
we're trying
to
become the establishment.
Exactly. So as long as we're playing that politic game, we do have to politic.
Yeah.
So
the people that think that like Thomas Massey or Jared Polis are like terrible statists that need to be ridiculed until they go hide in a bunker somewhere is just crazy to me. Like they're some of the best we've ever had.
Yeah, I agree.
Rand Paul's on that list too, and even like
Mike Lee to a lesser
extent. I was about to say Mike. Like I'll make the borders like there's. I would rather we win a couple people into the House and Senate, and then there's actually 7 or 8 people that we've been friendly with that are willing to work with us.
Yeah.
Instead, we've like Polis is never gonna flip to L.
Yeah.
Because his state LP looks the way it does. And they consistently attack him on every fucking thing, even like when he's the more libertarian one on an issue. It's happened multiple times over because their state LP got taken over by the Republican Party. So, shit happens. But yeah, it would be nice if we could stop burning bridges with the people close to us that actually do have a little bit of power and influence and could just work together.
Imagine that.
Liberty, unity, guys. It's still the mission. 5 years later, we're still doing it.
I know. And it's funny because I look back on that, and at some points I'm like, oh, this is never going to happen. But I'm actually white-pilled on this. I think it could still happen. But it just seems unlikely right now. But not impossible. Not impossible by any means. And there is a day that I wish would come where we all could work together, which is honestly why I wanted to have this conversation. Because look at this, we do disagree, and we're not walking away screaming at each other, and we're still friends.
Shocker. Yeah, and thanks again for having me on. This was great.
Anytime. Hey, let everyone know where they can find you, and we'll wrap up here.
You guys can find me on Twitter at David Fite or at Fight for Liberty if you want to find the show, or at Free Speech Corp if you're looking for the network. And then I'm on most of the other things, the Facebook and Instagram and YouTube. Mostly just look up Fight for Liberty on everything, and you'll find me. And I'll just make one more plea to if you're a delegate to Grand Rapids in 26, vote for the person who's actually going to do the best job, not the person you agree with the most, and maybe maybe we can go forward in a better direction.
Maybe we can look forward to actually something. But I'll end on this. I kind of wanted to see what your opinion is. My opinion for a while has been that outside of any legal obligations to stay a legal party, that one of the biggest things that we should be focusing on is countering state propaganda. It's like we should just run our own propaganda campaigns, our own psychological operations, and just win the hearts and minds of people. Like
100%.
Forget door knocking and all of these things. Literally just put as much as we can into running propaganda, because they're going to end up coming to us anyways.
I mean, I guess my one disagreement is that I think that should be the major theme of the movement. I don't think that should be the major theme of the party, because it's harder to do that as a party.
That is true. The party is not the movement. The movement, yeah. Okay,
so,
I agree.
To pat myself on the back again, companies like Free Speech Media, who are, kind of trying to aspire to do a lot of what you're saying, look like the mainstream media a little bit more than a lot of what we do, and kind of trick people into watching our news coverage instead of the other guy's news coverage, because they're just going through YouTube looking for some election night coverage, and there's some people doing election night coverage, there's speeches going on, this looks like news, but they're hearing about libertarian candidates and independent candidates, and hearing from people like Spike Cohen and Dave Smith and all of these other people, instead of just dipshits on CNN. Like, that's something that definitely should be happening, or like what Dan Smots does with Goulash Media. Like, he is the propaganda master, and like, that is some important stuff for the movement. And I think that should be the stuff, and not just selfishly, but objectively, I think that's the stuff that should be getting a lot of the most funding and attention from people in the movement. I think projects like Civil, I'm not sure if you've heard of, they're kind of like the Libertarian Netflix is what they're going for. It's like an actual streaming platform that's hosting, they've got like Reason stuff. They've got Free the People with like Matt Kibbe and all of his stuff, and like Lou Perez and all of them. And just a bunch of great content on there, and adding on more. And it's like a Roku app that you can, it's like your other streaming services, where you can watch it on your TV or your computer or your phone or whatever you want, the same way you watch your other content. And it's got the documentaries and the TV shows and kind of the content that looks more like Netflix than, not to dig on you or me, but like, normies don't watch that many like podcasts. Well, I mean, it's becoming more of a thing, obviously, but like, when we were doing it, that wasn't what people were watching. They wanted to see news and documentaries and like things like that. I don't know if it's still a thing, but Austin Peterson and I were talking last time he was on my show about like a reality show from a libertarian perspective.
That I would actually watch that. I hate
that would be great.
Reality TV, but I would watch that.
But yeah, I 100% agree with you. I just think that the party should stick to the other stuff, like the door knocking, the running the campaigns, because that's really all. You have to be a party to do that stuff, right? And if you don't have to be a party to do whatever it is you want to do, I think you should try to do it in a different way, because it's so much easier to do it as just a corporation or a nonprofit or as yourself. Like, my biggest criticism of the Mises Caucus is that they took over a party, like, verbally to get a hold of that Twitter account, when they already had Dave Smith, who at the time and now has a bigger following.
Yeah.
Like, they already had a bigger Twitter account.
Yeah.
They could have just kept going with that one. Like, they didn't need to take over the party to let that account also look like Dave Smith. They just could have just kept promoting Dave Smith.
If they would have just focused on the caucus, just being a good caucus, it would have been way different.
Yeah, they were already a super successful PAC. There was no reason to take over the party. They could have been so much more successful as an auxiliary organization to the party, and just promoting their candidates over anybody else's, because the Prags, who the biggest criticism of them is that they would have supported Dick Cheney if he had an L next to his name, would have still backed the Mises Caucus people because they would have had an L next to their name. If the Mises Caucus is doing a good job promoting their guys, the Prags would have had no choice but to back the Mises Caucus over their guys because they were the more likely to win candidates, and they're being pragmatic. Like it's a no-brainer.
And it was more changing culture at that point instead of, sticking it to the inside man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that would have been actually a successful thing. But here we are. And I don't know. But I didn't mean to drag on the closeout there. But I think
you're good. You're good.
I think mostly ignoring the National Party and mostly ignoring the party as it is, unless it's at the ballot box, or maybe some volunteer hours. There are so many better organizations to spend your time with in the movement than the actual party itself.
Well, and start a business, put these libertarian ideas to work. If they're that good to begin with, then we should have no problem doing this. So, hey, David, I want to thank you so much for coming on. I do want to get you back on. Hopefully it doesn't take this long to get you back on, because we've got all kinds of other fun things we could talk about instead of this boring inside baseball. So yeah, let's definitely get you back on here in the next few weeks or whatever. And then we've got the election coming up and all this other fun stuff. And so, we'll get you back on. Everyone, make sure and go check him out. I'll make sure everything's in the episode description, like always. And other than that, until next time, stay free, my friends.